And we're
Hello,
live.
guys. Yes, thank you for joining us today to our session, our design talk, Jadene and me, about how to work with product team efficiently. Maybe you don't know us, so let's start a little bit with some introduction. Please, Jadene, you can start to introduce yourself a little bit.
Thank you, Edward. So my name is Jadene. I'm a user experience designer at a company called Methods in the UK. And I'm very passionate about research, UX design, accessibility, and just finding ways to improve products for people.
Great. So, a little bit about myself. My name is Edward Chechique. I'm product designer from Malaga, a wonderful city in the south of Spain. During this last 6 years, I specialized in designing digital products for different software companies and focusing on user experience, interface aspects, design system, research, and usability tests. Always work very close to developers, product managers, and QA teams. And a part of this, I'm also a moderator of design thinking workshops and actively do mentorship to help designers who want to enter to the user experience field. So that's a little bit about us. And yeah, so this will be a little bit talk between us about how to work with the product team efficiency. If you have some questions, please ask them in the Q&A. And at the end of the session, we will start to respond them. Part of that, more or less 45 minutes the session, but let's see how it will going. So Jadene, I give you let's say how I said it. You can start to ask the three questions.
Okay, I'll start with a general question. So, Edward, what challenges have you faced? This is just in general, collaborating with the team.
Okay, this is a good question. Always there is a lot of challenges. I will say that with different people in the team, there is different challenges. For example, we have the product managers, we have the QA teams and the developers and the designers, all of them in one team. With each of them, different challenges. But at the end, I think the most challenging is to understand design to the team, to think design, and to know better the product. What I mean is that if the teams know good design, they can solve for us a lot of issues in advance. Because I will give an example. Let's say that the team, I designed this one screen and there is a design error, design bug, and I didn't mention it. And though I worked only as a designer in the team, let's say one designer in the team. If the developer will understand design, he can fix this issue during, for example, design review. And that's the thing that I see that it's very important in a high level with design teams to understand design, to understand what we do. And I think is our mission or our work to expand it them, because it's not enough only to design the product. The design teams are there to support us with the product, because at the end, all of us want to have successful for the product, because I think we enjoy with something success. This is my point of view about it. And you, Jadene, maybe you see it a little bit different, no? Or yes?
Kind of a similar point of view. So I think a challenge with teams, and this is coming from a designer perspective, is communicating the value of design. And I've got kind of a niche subject under my toolkit at work, which is advocating for accessibility. So making sure designs are not only functional and meet user needs, but also including everyone. So we're not designing any feature that people with disabilities might struggle or have issues using. So I think communicating design value and the need for accessibility is a challenge that I face across product teams. It's not only just with you working with designers, you've got developers who need to have this understanding of the value of both design and accessibility, and then stakeholders that go beyond the team. So it's like the full range of team members. We should all be of the same understanding.
And I don't know if it's happened because today, if you have if you had experience with it, but what happened when there is two designers inside the team? Let's say we have one product, two or more designers, and what the challenges the designers between themselves can have something. Maybe you have some experience with that. Or
Yes. So I think having multiple designers on a team, I've kind of done this in a previous role. I think it's really important to have a solid design system, because imagine if you're designing a key call to action button and then someone has a different styling, whether it's a color or a size. Once that's handed over to developers, you're going to have multiple issues the further down the design process you go, if you've not resolved it in a working as one team, one accord from the beginning. How about you?
yes,
Do you find any? In fact, do you work with multiple designers on projects?
yes, this I think I had this experience. The big challenge is, as you say, that this is the design system, but also from my point of view, this is something I call design principles. That if all the team understand what decision we take in every moment, that there is junction to take decision. And okay, the design system help us, for example, to understand if the data table will will have a scroll bar or will have another stuff. Okay, this there, but what happens if we need to define what is more important? That the feature will be scalable, or or more important, that the feature will be more unique to one user. I mean, what's the things that guide us? Maybe I can give another example. We design a feature. Is it important that I will think about another features in the product to design it in the same way? Or in our product, it's not important? How we take functional, if there is a functional problem, how we solve the functional problem up to the endpoint without edge cases, or we said, okay, we know that our product will have edge cases, that's okay. From my experience, I was working in the past in product that was not able to have edge cases, for example. This is the positive value.
Yeah.
So as a designer, we needed to design everything without edge cases, because this is a very complex product, a lot of issues there. But yes, I think this is the most challenge. The design system, that is always challenge to maintain, but also that the people will understand how to design and what is important. We can call it design principles. That's my point of view about that. At least I don't know if it's something that you see in your roles in the past. Also, the thing is that the concept needs to be the same. Let's say.
Yeah. So is that touching on ways that we can ensure all designers in the team have the same values?
Exactly, values,
Yeah.
values.
I think
No, go, go.
it's something that can start from like the very beginning. So like in the interview stage, because the people you hire, you've got to make sure that they have those team values. So imagine if you've got one designer who likes working more independently, another that's more collaborative. I think people need to be in sync from the very beginning. So if you, the interview process, hire designers with similar values, or you communicate your company values, so at least they can make a decision of, you know what, this sounds like something I can be a part of. So I'd start quite early on in the journey. I think there's multiple points where you can ensure designers have the same value, but the example I would give is perhaps when you're hiring designers, see what their values are.
Or you take it more further. You say not the product value, the person value. I mean,
that's how I saw the question. Were you thinking more product value?
yes, I think it's something interesting because I hear a lot about startup CEOs that say the most important people in the team is the first 10 people, because this is the company for now until the next generation, until always, let's say, because the values of the people explain the values of the company, and people that work in one company will be very different from people that work in other company. I think this is interesting. Yes. interesting way to do it, to take a look about it. And do you work, for example, with product manager, for example? Uh, this is something that you're familiar with?
Yes, so the recent team that I've joined has a product manager for the particular service we're working on and designing.
And how you work, you see the work with them? What will make more efficient to work with them? What the things that important to them, things that we need to take care.
I think it's having clear conversations. So it's making sure that you're all on the same page. So when they come and they present what the business case is, and then also they input the information from the user researcher, and we try and align those values and what the end goal is for the body of work we're doing. Making sure we're not just talking at the start of the project, but have regular check-ins. So things like stand-ups, I find daily stand-ups are really helpful for ensuring the team is on track and on the same page, especially with product managers.
And this is something that I also see a lot of times. So where is the border between the product manager and the designer? Because the product manager is, let's say, it's not a very new role, but it's new role that every product manager shape it in different way.
Mm-hmm.
For example, one of the things that important for me, it's like the product manager will understand what you want to achieve for the product. We can say it, use the user story. As a user, I want so that with some acceptance criteria below, where he want that the feature will be, and not to define it for the first moment and not on the fly to make changes and that stuff. I don't know. This is something that I guess every company work different, but did you see some different type of product managers and how they work?
Say that last bit again, it just cut out slightly.
I mean, do you so in different companies, what's for you the most efficient way to work with them, that they send the requirements, the scope for you to
The most
design?
efficient way. So that's when you get an external brief coming in. So another company wants
Yes.
to use the design team. Gosh, I guess we've had to adapt quite a bit now we're all remote and make use of Zoom calls, Teams meetings, things like that are really helpful. But I guess having perhaps a kickoff call with all the stakeholders, external, internal, to make sure that we're on the same page from the beginning is invaluable. That's really important.
Because in that moment all the people start with the same point, align everything. Yes, I did in the past in some companies. I can say that from my point of view, this is something that in that meeting also we see the gaps in the understanding of people. So it's like align everything, all the information in one moment, that all the people start from the same point, and that's quite good to work with kick-off meetings, let's say. So that's in interesting way to start. But in daily to day, you said with Slack messaging, but important for you to work efficiently is to have the stand-up meeting every day.
Yes, I think I use Slack for any questions that I have that pop up in the day so I can quickly reach the product manager or the designers. But daily stand-ups set the tone for the day, so you all get together and discuss what happened yesterday and what you're working on today, and it gives an opportunity to troubleshoot any issues or blockers that you have before you'll start a day's work, which I think is really good.
Yes, this is something that I remember in another company that I worked. Yes, it's something align all the people in the same line, because at the end, in in our world, there is a lot of changes every moment. There is a lot of let's say bugs, something new from requirements for management or business needs. So these things that can be good stuff. Let's say yes, I see it also like you. This is a good way to talk them. Let's
I've
see.
just noticed that we do have a Q&A sent in from Gabrielle. So I don't know if you want to pause at this point to look at it, or we address it at the end of the section. What would you prefer to do? Should we take a look?
Yes,
Thank you for
sure.
your question, Gabriel. So your question is, what do you recommend is the most important action to make talking about MVP and prototyping, launching a product? That's a good question.
This is the question of the world. I can.
Do you want to go first?
Okay. First of all, people need to understand why is necessary the MVP, because a lot of people say that the MVP, but why? So MVP is the only way. Only way. It's a way to evaluate if the product go in the direction, because the idea is make the minimum to understand if we are in the direction. I mean, there is also an MVP, for example, that a lot of people said if we want to launch a product, let's see if there is market. So one thing is make some landing pages, put some money in Facebook, I don't know, and see how much people wants the product, or maybe launch a prototype in an event and see how much people interact with that to see how much people want to with it. This is the first thing. Why we do an MVP? Because the people what they do, how much time to have, what we will do. But it's not. This is the concept of the MVP, and this is the first thing to align, from my point of view, about people, because this thing that people not maybe not understand, not don't understand, they don't align about it, and that's make it difficult to work. This is from my point of view. I don't know if you see the same, Jaden. What do you about that?
I think I'm of a similar point of view. So I would say that the most important action to make. So when you start talking about landing pages, I was nodding my head to agree, because I think the research before launching your MVP, can't get my word, is very important. So testing the waters early, seeing that the market's there, that you are meeting the user needs with initial research or testing. And I know it's important to have that MVP or the prototype in order to user testing, but I'd definitely say research is the most important action to take first.
Before the MVP.
Yeah.
And another thing that I see a lot of time is what will be the MVP? It will be product, it will be prototype. What this is something necessary to define. I will, from the things that I see, do the less you need to make the signal you want to take from the market. If you see if you have a product, if you have a business, make maybe landing page, see if people interact. If you want to see more deep, prototype. If more deep, you can start to build a product. Also, a lot of people that not start to code with code, they start to build the application with no code application. This is another way to do it. But
Great. To quickly like spin up an MVP if you use no code tools, it really speeds up the process. You have to then go back and work with the development team. But if you just initially want to get something out there quickly, then no code tools are very helpful in order to do that. That could be things like, oh gosh, there's loads. You could build apps with Bubble, glide apps. You can build landing pages with Card if you need to. And that's, I know sometimes designers have a bit of, what's the word? They might not like those tools because they are quite simple and quick to use. And they're not like design software, but I think they're good if you want to get ideas out there quickly.
Yes, I feel it also. Gabriel, did we answer your questions? And you can type in the Q&A. Let's see.
That was a good question. It definitely got us talking about a lot of.
This is something about efficiency also. What is the MVP and where we want to be? So okay, yes, he said for sure. Thanks. That's good. And Jaden, the relationship maybe that we are the most needs to have, let's say, to make a lot of effort in the relationship between us and the developers, because it's like couples. This with the product managers, okay, native, okay, users, okay, but the developers, let's say, we go to sleep with them. We are very close. We are very close.
Yeah.
Very close, very close. But from your point of view, What are the most challenges work with developers in particular?
Oh gosh, I'm having like flashbacks of projects I've worked closely with developers in the past. I think it's a challenge is perhaps the transition from design to development. So you may have a design which looks in one way, but if I haven't discussed with the developer throughout that design and it comes to build, and they build something that perhaps doesn't look like the design, or they start to explain the challenges of my design, this is a problem.
But one thing that I saw very interesting, I don't know if you use it, but I involve them for the first moment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't let them say, just send me the product.
Mm-hmm.
No, this not exist. You with me build the product together. You don't execute what I send you.
Yeah.
Do you use some technique like that? Uh,
Definitely. I think it's like the start. So when I was a junior designer, I made these mistakes. So I've learned now. And when we have the initial meetings with perhaps the researcher, designer, I'd invite the developer. They need to be involved in the conversation from the very beginning so they can perhaps express any limitations of the software or make us aware of any issues, troubles we may come across, or perhaps, let's say, components that could be reused that would then make the design process more efficient because we're not rebuilding something that already exists and we can use again. How about you?
Oh, the good relationship. Yes, as you said, as a junior designer, I thought that I think that the designer needs to come with surprise.
Mm-hmm.
But no, the thing is that to have a relationship with them every day, talk with them and build a relationship. They need to trust us that the design will be good to the user. They need to trust that we think about them. I mean, as you said, we don't build new components if it's not necessary. We use things. I can say that today I work with developers. I think in the last 2 years in several companies, always to involve them. I mean, I don't design by myself. I design with them. I said I design with you guys. I'm not here only. So from design review, always for the product. When I have a questions technical with them, when I start to design a feature, I say, okay, give you 5 minutes. I want to do this and this and this. This is more complicated. This is less complicated. How much you can, it will be able to you to make in this user story. Or when I design a feature, look, this is all the feature. Do you want to divide it to different user stories? So after that, we can come to the project manager together. Hey, look, up to now, this is not possible to have more because it will be difficult because of that. I mean, to take care of them. Apart of that, always when we have a meeting with them, have a meeting summary, for example, and below I always write, this is what we agreed, everything more to add, something like that. And also we hand off always prototype videos, explanation from other companies.
Mm-hmm.
I also use let's say a documentation notes for the user story that I put there all the small details for the feature. I mean, the feature will open from right to left because ABC. The feature will have that. The table will not possible to open two rows in the table because so for very small, to every detail inside, but all the decision I make with them. Every decision that we take, it's documented. So when the developers start to work, because he will not start to work immediately, everything will be there. So I mean, first, talk a lot with them,
Yeah.
involve them, and the design and the off also everything with them. Not so there is no surprise in the process. They know everything. I think they a little bit more commitment to the product when we involve them. They not feel they execute. They part of the design team. I don't know if do you see it the same way?
Yes, it's important to make them feel part of the process. And the journey described is very efficient. Hand over documentation, that's great. I used to have prototypes, let's say in InVision, and I'd leave comments for stakeholders to review, and also developers who would go in and review any questions or annotations that tell you how the features would behave, because sometimes it's difficult when it's a flat design to express how it would work when you interact with it, unless you've got perhaps more interactive prototypes, but you can prototype everything.
Yes, this is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And apart of that, when do you ask them to have to give you feedback about the design? I mean,
Yes, because I used to create quite adventurous designs that perhaps, you know, when you want to push designs to see how far they can go, and perhaps you break certain boundaries and you try and make them a bit more exciting, you may also cause issues for your developers, which that could have a larger impact on the whole project. So perhaps if you design something that will take 3 weeks to build instead of one, that pushes the deadline back on the project, with a much bigger issue for the delivery team because you won't deliver the product on time. So it's I find it very important to get feedback from developers before I even start designing. So I might run ideas past them. So it's very collaborative. Like if I have an idea, either I'll quickly sketch it, or I will find perhaps a code pen snippet that shows the idea I have, and we'll talk about it there and then, which is always really helpful, and it's very quick rather than investing a lot of time in a mock-up that perhaps won't work. A conversation early on can save a lot of time in this area.
yes, I see it like you because I also take a lot of screenshot and that stuff to show them, not only the product because it cannot explain everything. So that is a good way. We have a question for Gabriel. Let's respond him. We can respond him. Do you have both as a designer apply visual thinking when having internal meetings? If you do so, could you give any key tip? You can start, Jaden.
Yeah. So I'm hoping I'm understanding visual thinking correctly, but with internal meetings, I'd perhaps take a workshop approach. So any ideas that we have, I wouldn't just express them myself. Perhaps I'd get sticky notes and we would all collaboratively work on resolving perhaps an issue, or we'd card sort and use different workshop activities that involve everyone. Or even just as a designer, if it's a research session, I often use more visual tools. So we're currently remote now. I'd use mirror boards to create that workshop setting and start to structure a website. So perhaps it's information architecture and I'm wanting to put the content in a logical order. So I'd like map out all of the content of the page and then do user research to guide where I'd position the different content. So the most important at the top and working its way down is how I'd approach it.
Understand. If you, I can say one tip about that. For example, I use also Miro.
Yeah.
Always, yes, Miro team. The good product, right? Super good, spectacular product. The thing is that what I do today, because we are in remote now, and this is from my point of view, the advance of the remote. I use my iPad application of Miro, and I have a pencil of Apple Pencil. And on my iPad, when I need to explain something, I just sketch it on the board of Miro, like an artboard, and all the people can see it. So always with visual. So always the pen work when I try to explain something, because sometimes we need to explain very complex interactions. So or with video or with sketching, but visual always. Another thing that it's possible to do, that I did in the last company, is we use the Crazy 8 exercise. Do you know it, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is that if people not familiar, it's like take A4 paper, divide it to 8 rectangles, and in 8 minutes, the teams need to sketch a new idea. So the thing is the thing is that in 8 minutes, all the people start to come with visual solution. What good in that? The developers start to sketch. We will start to sketch in everything, not by talking, by show what we do. So I think this is something that visual thinking can be a good thing to do. Yeah, I mean, you can try it also. I like to work that way with the team that I work with. Um, let's see. And Jaden, how you how you try to avoid miscommunication with the developers, because this is also another stuff.
It is mixed communication. I think this ties in with our earlier points, getting them involved early in the process. And if they have both a visual to follow with the prototype, then we've also documented what should be, how it should behave, what should work, the function of things. I think that should be enough, but sometimes things can still get lost. So perhaps designers having mini reviews with developers is also something that's quite useful.
Yes, I mean the mini reviews. This is very important. One thing that I agree with you to go to the developer, send him a Slack into the words with remote. Hey, can you give me access to the environment to see the product? I want to take a look about it, not in the end of the process.
Yeah.
Or in sprint meeting, hey, can you open your environment, show how it works? So this communication is super good to understand what people, let's say, this to avoid this miscommunication between the designer and developers. We have another question for Mercedes. Let's see.
Ooh, we've got context and we've got a question.
Working on an agency, we have a designer specialist in our UI, UX, and research. After research, the report was focused to explain the problems identified to the client instead to the UI designer who is going to solve the problem. Good questions.
Then the question is how to do this process to share insights efficiently. We want UI designers to observe the user testing session, but they're always full of work. Full of work to spend that time.
I have an idea. No, go, Jaden.
Okay. Hopefully I'm not stealing your idea, but my first thought when I read that the UI designers don't have time to attend the session is perhaps could it be recorded and shared with them after so they can review it in their own time. What were you going to suggest, Edward?
First of all, record. I think this is the solve this thing. I mean, record because if they cannot attend, record. This is a good way to do it because they can also talk with the people that was involved in the meeting to explain. But with record, there is the whole information. I mean, I can say that today every important meeting I record not for other people, also for myself because I know what we talk in the meeting, and sometimes there are things that I don't want to ask again and again. So yes, I agree with you. The record this is a good thing, and if you work in cloud or everything, all the people work in cloud, but to share it cloud, send it on Dropbox, and hey, this is the meeting. Please take a look about that. Ta, ta, ta. This is a good thing. Yeah, of course, it would be better to take the bullets point, but nobody, I think, have the time to edit the video.
Yeah. Is there someone, I wonder if there's someone who can do like a written summary and then they can also watch back the video later. But if they are quite busy, it'd be good for them to get like the most important information in a summary. So at least they don't have to spend time with a report for the UI designers after, if that's information that needs to go to the client.
Yes, exactly. Bullet points good, and as you said, video make the job. Let's say. Mercedes, did we answer your questions? Let's see. Cross finger.
Fingers crossed. Hopefully that helped. Oh, message in the chat.
Chat. More or less. Hope. Yes, this is also always a problem about people that not involve 100% the product teams. From
Mm.
my point of view, the concept of let's say agency will be not will be with us a lot of time, because this is the problem. People that come, it's necessary to understand the product 100% 360 degrees. If not, it's difficult to enter every time to the discussions. But yes, this is a challenge about the communication.
Mm.
But the
It's
problem
something that they
was
do.
the time and the communication.
Yeah.
I can
It's
my
really
suggestion. No,
good.
go Jaden, go.
I was going to say that perhaps they need to understand the importance of the user testing, and it's hard when there's not the time.
Hmm.
Well, it's user testing is really important, because if they are the UI designers, they need to know how the users are using their product. So it's important for them to understand and observe those sessions so they can include the improvements in their design iteration.
Hmm. Another that my point about that, it's if there is problem inside the team, then make me, this is another question. It's to use retrospective meetings. Uh,
Mm,
did you did it in the past?
yes, retros are really good, and that helps bring the whole team up to speed with the findings.
Mm-hmm. The, I mean, if people don't know what is retrospective, I explain it in the way I like to explain it. All the people sit in the room and start to cry about their pains. And after that, all the teams start to solve the problems between inside the team. It's like how I could go when the couples go to psychologist and
Hmm.
start to cry, more or less something like that, in easy way. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, there is methods and ceremony, but at the end it's to have a open talking about the problems and start to solve them. Uh, I can say that in the past, in one team that I worked, we had this problem, and after retrospective meeting, a lot of things change and improved, but a lot. So retrospective meeting, this is one thing, and maybe you will find inside the team that the problem is not the time, it's other stuff. It's maybe the people don't want to be involved, or because some things, because they don't, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff. But retrospective meeting, put the people put everything on the table and start to improve it. That's my 2 cents about that. um, what, Jaden?
How often do you have retrospectives, like within a product journey?
Look, a lot of say that in the end of each sprint, but that we said it's a lot. Every 2 months, 1 month and a half, it's enough. Because
Mm,
it's necessary to have some cycles of product to understand problems and start move forward.
yes, I agree. We've got a similar timescale too, so it'll be every 6 to 8 weeks.
And who manage the meetings normally? There is Scrum
Normally,
Master.
it depends on this. If we're in the early stage of the product and the project, perhaps a user researcher and a scrum master. So I think if we're further, it depends. So very early on, user researcher. Midway, it could be a UX designer. Towards the end, I think it might be the product owner who has the overview. So we kind of share it as we go along. We have more to say about the research at the start of the project, and so on and so forth as you go down.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I remember that the Scrum Master was doing in the companies that I work.
Mm-hmm.
People that it's not involved day to day in the product. It's like a manager. It's easy to him, I saw, to manage the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, if there is no Scrum Master, I guess one person that have the possibility to manage meetings can do it well. So, no, yes. Um, let's see. In another thing about the communication between the developers and the designers,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that designers should understand programming a little bit to understand better designers?
I think this is a very debated question with
Mm-hmm.
designers and developers, but I think that designers should have a basic understanding of programming, even if it's just a little, because then if
Mm-hmm.
you understand the way a developer works, I think that you can make better choices in your designs when you work with them, or you can save them time. So perhaps if you just want to check the contrast of a color or quickly swap something out on a website, you could use the inspect tool and go into the code, and you'd understand what you need to change in order to quickly see the results. Because if you have to add that to a developer's list of tasks for the day, it might not be done as quickly and efficiently as you want it to. And if it's just a small task, it's something that you could perhaps look at as a designer.
Fully agree with you about that. I see that the things, first of all, CSS, HTML, there is no debate from my point of view. Only to understand how to open the inspect in the browser, start to play with that. That's make the magic. A part of that, I can say that because I studied a little bit JavaScript in the past, I understand how code works. Sometimes I explain to the developers logic by code. If else, if else, if else. I'm not the developer and not know how to write the code, but understand the way they think. Like if something happens, so this thing. If else. And sometimes I actually write to them flows in that way. If else. So it's not a code, but yes, it's a logic one. And I think they understand. It's more easy to them to understand. I mean, I don't know.
That's good, because if you write in a way that's easier for them to understand, you're making their job easier rather than a lot of back and forth with misunderstandings.
Yes, yes. This is something that I saw in the past, that they start to talk with me in that way. So, okay, so if they talk with me in that way, I copy it and talk with them in the same way. Well, works. So if else, if else. So not only for the CSS HTML, definitely. If people want more to understand, small course on JavaScript to understand how code write, I guess can be a good adventure
Definitely.
for them.
I think
And
I also add that it depends on your company. So I've recently joined a new company, and designers are required to code because the prototypes that we work in, we use an existing design system within visuals to code, and we have to use HTML to make the designs. So that's been a bit of a learning curve for me. But it's interesting because it gets me to think in a different way. And I think, should I collaborate with developers sooner or in the near future, I'll have a better understanding of what they're doing and the limitations of the design system that we have.
yes, it's interesting because if you open this one, I guess in the future, Figma Sketch, from my point of view, will be a product that, how I can say, the developers build the design system, and we only will work with drag and drop or something like that. We build in the experience with code, not with let's say vectors. The delivery will be much more faster from my point of view. That weeks, but each company will have this his filter of product. I don't, because today it's possible to do it. No, it's not possible, but it's very close. I mean, if we take a framework of React, open the sandbox and start to play with the properties, it's very close to this solution. It's not a lot to do to have more to solve this challenge. Let's see how it will look in the future, but I guess the design in the future will be very different from today, and future 2 3 years. I guess the company is pushed to this direction.
Definitely.
Yes, do you think so, like that?
I mean, the only concern I have, yes, it will make design faster. Will it limit creativity?
This is another question.
Mm-hmm.
This is another question. How much efficient we can work inside the team, but give us the ability to be creative. That's another topic. But let's see. This is always, we start to talk about design system, make more think more efficiency. This is with developers, but at the end, some designers say that it's limit them to design. So where is the border?
That would be a whole new design talk.
Yes, yes. Maybe this is for the next design talk. And uh, apart of the developers, interesting, I guess. Do you have a little bit connection with QA teams?
Yes. So they will often, when they're doing their testing, they'll refer back to me to say, is this how it be? They'll just come and check that the design they have and they're testing against is correct. So what the developers built, does it match the design? There'll be lots of questions like that that they have.
And they involved from the first time, or how who explained to them product? Because you did this designer, the develop, but they need to test all this stuff. But how they understand what was in the designing step, how it should look.
Mm-hmm. I think I would initially give them it's kind of like a presentation of the design so they understand how it functions, how it works. And then if there's any documentation that's gone alongside it, they'll use that when they're running through their tests.
And when they do the test, who said what will be the test? I mean, who make the script for them? They did it. They do it.
They've got a generic test script, yeah.
No, there is no detailed.
Because they're testing more, because a lot of the work that is done is for public sector. It's got a lot of compliance with accessibility, so that's their biggest focus. They will check that line matches in terms of appearance, but they want to make sure the function won't cause any issues for other users.
And before they start to work, you make a design Q&A. I mean, to see that the implementation is like the design, or you do it.
A little one, I think, to an extent. Maybe not in the same way as you're describing.
So I mean,
if they raise any issues, then we'll have a discussion, and then I'll review what they've tested or any questions that they have.
Because something that I used in the past is to do design Q&A. There is design development, but before the development go to the Q&A, there is design Q&A to see that everything that implemented, it's exact as it's designed, as we think about in the design phase. But not always it's the same. So sometimes, apart of the visual design, that there's 2 pixels from here, the size of the text, that is always that small stuff. Sometimes the flow is broken because the implementation, I didn't explain to the developer the exact flow, or they didn't understand me well. And so this is something that I used to do because I think that is important before the QA team start on coding. So the QA team get the product only to test bugs and small stuff, not small. They have a lot of job, but to focus on more on bugs and, as you said, accessibility and that stuff. So okay. But apart of that, there is not a lot of connection with them. I mean, it's more. No, it's not a lot of time. We have 9 minutes more for this session. I don't know if there are more people that want to ask something. Let's see. Let's see if there is more stuff. For now, nothing.
I think we've covered all the Q&As, which is good.
No, that's good.
That's always a good sign.
So I don't know. Do another thing that you want to ask me? Or?
I think, let me just double check if I've covered all of the questions that I have. How do you manage? Well, it's like a double whammy question. How do you manage any conflict between designers and developers?
First of all, try not to get in conflict with them. I mean, always share with them the stuff and start understand to start to explain them what we want to design, how to design, and involve them in the process. This for not get in a moment that we have conflict. A part of that, maintain with them relationship. I mean, not only relationship to ask them how is your current situation, how is your baby, what the what's up with your I don't know with your wife. Do you have she's changed the works maybe, I don't know. So do you have brothers to know them, things of people. And this is to avoid this miscommunication, because if the people are very close, not miscommunication, the problems not rise every 2 moments. But if there is a problem, actually, and start to what happened, what not work, how we can improve the stuff, and that's also connected with the retrospective meeting, you know. But if something not work, not let it broke, fix it, Not say that the developer is a bad man, blah blah blah. No, what happened, how we can improve. Did you have another more tips about that?
I would say that I really liked your point of checking in, so having conversations beyond just work and knowing them as colleagues and friends and people. But I think always going back to the brief and the user needs should help resolve conflicts, because if any of the actions by the designer or the developer don't align with the user needs, then we both have to get back on track.
Yes, exactly. To align where we want to be and why. So this is the brief. This is our goal. This is our way. How we do it. Yes, I'm fully agree with you. Again, it's from point of view alignment. Almost, because at the end the people want to that the product will success. So if both of us know where we want to be, it's more easy. That's good.
And I think that's a good place to kind of have a final word, that being on the same page is very important.
Yes. To be in the same page, maybe one of the most very important thing to work efficiency with people. Actually, I don't have more questions for you. You do you have more?
That's all from me.
So thank you, Jadene, for this design talk. For very pleasure to talk with you, and thank you for you guys to join us for this session. We hope in the future we have more. And that's all. So enjoy the weekend and see you next time.